Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
Hey, Junior, are you done cleaning your room? Yeah, Mom, I'm done. Hey, Junior, are you done with your homework? Yeah, Dad, I'm done. Wait a minute, Junior. I'm looking at your homework and I'm confused. What's going on? It just doesn't look done to me. Neither does your room look done. I'm confused. Help me understand. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. And today we're talking about the great confusion, known growth versus hope in retirement. And AAA, there is a lot of confusion. I think it gets back to definitions, right? Like with Junior there.
Right. Exactly. That's the whole point. You're using the same words as your 15, 16-year-old child or grandchild or whatever, right? But there's a different meaning behind that. And that happens so many times, especially when it comes to the financial world, that words are used, words like conservative or annuities, fiduciary. All these words are used often, but I'm convinced many people don't really understand the meaning of those words. And that's where it causes a great confusion in people's minds when they're talking. You know, it's just like if you had somebody talking English and then somebody talking Spanish and they don't know the difference, there's going to be confusion. It's the same thing. The definitions are so important. And that's why we have the show, so that we can make sure that we're on the same page and that people are understanding and that there is not confusion. And if confusion is lessened from that standpoint.
Yeah. So people throw around the term growth all the time, right? But what does growth actually mean? How do you get growth? And what does it mean? What is it made up of? And today we're going to try to solve or give folks an equation so that they can see what growth is made up of. Because I've never heard anybody that comes in and talks to us and is not interested in growth. But people are also interested in different things. Some people are interested in speculation, and they just want to see if they can turn their 100 into a million or turn their million into 10 million. And other people say, you know what, I worked hard for this $2 million and I want to protect the 2 million and get growth that I can live off of. And so let's get into AAA. Let's get into a little bit the different ways to get growth and what makes sense for retirees. Let's try to clear up some of this confusion.
Yeah. I like that, Daniel. Indeed. And that's the whole idea of the show. So the equation that we've never used before on this show, we got a new equation that hopefully will help articulate this to people. And the equation is G equals I plus CA. And the CA is capital appreciation. And that's when a share price of a stock goes from, if it's $100 a share, to 100, 100, 200, 300, 400, right? Whatever, or it can go the other direction. Then it would be a capital loss as opposed to appreciation. So that is, and when you look at the S&P 500, you look at the Dow and how it goes up. Well, it's going up because the appreciation is going up. It's becoming worth more. The share price is becoming worth more. There's interest, there's dividends thrown in there to help with that, but it's not the largest portion.
So the G equals I plus CA is growth, your total return, your growth. When you look at your account statement, is it up or is it down? Right. But that is made up of an income portfolio. It can be made up of an income portion or capital appreciation. So some people invest solely for capital appreciation. That'd be like putting your money into Tesla. It doesn't pay any dividend. So from 2021 to today, right? It hit a peak in 2021. I'm not sure that it's got higher than that peak, right? If it had a dividend, let's say it had a 4% dividend and it was the same value today as it was then, you would have made 4% every year and your account value is the same. Because it doesn't have a dividend, it could be up or it could be down from what you put it in. And you're hoping, and that's why we have the known growth, right? Versus hope and retire. You're hoping that it's more valuable. Now, if you're a kid, if you're a young person, if you're packing a bunch of money away for your retirement one day, growth or capital appreciation is a good thing to hope. It's good to hope when you're young. But if you're 10 years from retirement, or you're serious about retirement, or you're in retirement, hope is not a great plan for retirement. In fact, it's not a plan at all, and it's definitely not a strategy. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah. And time on a young person's side can help the capital appreciation significantly. But it's a whole nother thing for those who are in and close to retirement, 10 years to retirement or within that time frame. You're listening to Financial Strategies Radio with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And we love to be able to educate you, because an educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. Today we have a paper that we love to give you to be able to help educate you further. And this is called Introduction to Stock Dividend Investing. A lot of people don't understand about the dividend and the reinvestment of the dividend in their stocks and how that actually creates growth over time, the old-fashioned way, through compounding. And so this paper will help you understand that a little bit more. And easy read paper, yours for free by calling us at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. No obligation, 800-725-7616. Call now for Introduction to Stock Dividend Investing. You're listening to Financial Strategies Radio, the great confusion, the known growth versus the unknown growth. Wow. So capital appreciation is unknown growth, right? Because we don't know what it's going to be.
AAA, I was talking to a client just the other day, and he said to me, I have no idea how anyone values anything anymore, because he's a business owner. He built a business. He sold the business. He understands valuations, right? He understands business, and he's looking at the market, and he's looking at these valuations. He says it doesn't make sense. No one would actually pay that kind of money for a company if they were actually trying to go buy a company, not a stock, right?
Right.
And people have changed from looking at stocks as companies you have some ownership in, to it's just stock. The price goes up. Right? And part of that is because of flows. And today is not a show on flows, but flows are money that's being forced into indexes, right? Through 401ks or through money coming from other countries into the US because it's done well, right? And that creates capital appreciation. If we force money into 500 stocks in the S&P 500, that's driving up the valuation. Now, the difficulty with that, there's a lot of things that could change to make that go the other way. And the question is, do you want to keep counting on all those things going right for capital appreciation to keep going up?
Right.
Or do you want to look at a different way to get growth? And this really depends on where you are in life, in my mind. Now, I think it can work for everyone, but it really depends on where you are, what phase of life you're in, right, AAA?
Right. And Daniel, you're right. So, that appreciation, that flow of money, it's a supply and demand thing. The supply is not as great as the demand, so money keeps going in. And now you don't know this, because the Cabbage Patch doll era was prior to your birth, if I'm remembering properly. And so people at Christmas time could not get enough Cabbage Patch dolls. And Cabbage Patch dolls, which would normally be maybe a $50 item, were selling for $1,000 a doll because you couldn't get them. And, and now, do you even know about Cabbage Patch dolls today? No. Right? Where they've gone to the way of the dodo bird, right? So, in the same way, your aunt, my sister, was telling me, she bought Hummel figurines 40 years ago or whatever, right? 50 years ago. They bought these things as an investment. She said, oh, brother, I would have been better taking that money and doing something else with it, right? Because today they're not even worth what she paid for them. Why? Because you know who bought those things 50 years ago? Baby boomers. Guess what? Baby boomers aren't buying them today. And guess what else? Their kids don't want them either. Not only, baby boomers, not only do baby boomers' kids not want to buy Hummels, they don't want their parents to give them to them. And you can get Hummels that were costing $1,000 for pennies on the dollar today on eBay and such, right? It's a supply and demand thing. The more the demand and the lesser the supply, it goes up. So that happens to the stock market. Right? In 2002, that happened. 2008, that happened. Nobody wanted to touch the stock market. Essentially, nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So the values went down. So then that's what's happened now. The flows are going, but as long as those, and we can go back, tulip mania, right? In Holland, in the 1700s, same kind of thing. Tulips were worth houses, estates were sold for tulips. And then, the king and the queen who put the value on tulips decided they weren't worth anything. So then, there was so estates were lost. People were killing them, much like the stock market crash of 1929. Crazy how that works. Wow. So if you just joined us, you listen to Financial Strategies Radio Show with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And there's this great confusion out there. And today's show is called The Great Confusion because there's this great confusion between known growth and unknown growth. And that's what we're talking about today. You can know that your money is growing, or you can hope that your money is growing. And we like the known piece, the mathematical certainties that are there that you can know that your money is going to grow. And we have today something that we like to give you. The first 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616, which is a video book that has 3 different animated video tracks educating you on different retirement-related topics for those people in and close to retirement. So if you want your video book, just ask for it by name, ask for a video book, no obligation to the first 5 first-time callers, 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy. Call now.
Important financial question. Are you feeling confident that you have enough money saved to enjoy a stress-free retirement?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
That's where Retirement Income Sources investment advisory arm comes in. We exist to help you invest your money smartly.
I'm struggling to accept my retirement without a steady paycheck. So can you help me invest into a profitable revenue plan?
Absolutely. We have top advisors nationwide who have a fiduciary obligation to you, helping you generate retirement income.
You're locked on to Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
Welcome back, Financial Strategies Radio. In the 1800s, the AI stock, the speculative stock in the 1800s were railroad stocks. Not so long ago, I was talking to somebody who had inherited railroad stocks from ultimately their grandmother or something like that. So they were in the family for decades, maybe centuries, maybe a century, right? So the share price on those railroad stocks, the capital appreciation on those railroad stocks was not a big deal overall. What was a big deal was that they had so many shares from the dividend being reinvested over so many years. That was the big deal. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about the Great Confusion. And AAA, the Great Confusion. It is insane to me how people can say words and the person they're talking to gets a completely different meaning from those words than what the person intended when they spoke those words. This happens in the financial industry. This happens with all kinds of stuff. But when someone says growth, are they talking about the same type of growth that you're talking about?
Right. And what I find, Daniel, is the people that I talk to, when they mean growth, all they mean is that their 100,000 is worth more or their million is worth more, right? And it grows. They may not know how it happens, the logistics or the mechanics of it, but they just want to see their bottom line. I never seen anybody that doesn't want to see their bottom line worth more in a year from now, right? And that's why sometimes when we're investing with people, we guarantee them that we know that they're going to have growth, and we set them up for success to have growth in a year from now. Maybe it won't be a lot of growth in a worst case scenario, but they'll receive, their values will be up or whatnot, depending on how we do their accounts. So everybody wants growth. Now, they may not want to lose principal, but everybody wants growth. They want to have more money, right?
Yeah, everybody wants to see growth. Now, the key is, how are you getting that growth? Where's the growth coming from? Is that certain growth, or is that hope, right? And what we were talking about earlier in this show is capital appreciation is what a lot of people are going for these days, right? It's going, the value of the portfolio is going up in value. Why is it going up in value? A lot of people don't care. A lot of people don't know why, and they don't care. They just want to see it go up. That can go up. That can be a very dangerous way of investing for retirees.
Right.
A lot of people say, I want it to grow, but I want my principal to stay intact. I want to grow on top of what I have. I don't want this roller coaster, up, down, up, down, up, down. I've gone through that. You and I at AAA talk to a lot of people. They come in and we get on the whiteboard and we draw and we show what's happened from 2000 to 2013 to today. And people look at the chart and it's a roller coaster ride between those 2 years. And they shake their head and they said, I went through that once and I don't want to go through that again. Right?
Right.
And so it worked for them.
If they don't want to go through it again, you got to do something different. Yeah.
Right. It worked for them because they were younger and they were saving and it worked out. But they don't want to do that again. So what's the answer? How do you get growth but not have to rely on the market gods to push things higher, not have to rely on flows, not have to rely on capital appreciation?
Well, that's real interesting, Daniel, because, if you looked at a chart, if our listening audience went to the internet and said, show me a chart of the S&P 500 with only the capital appreciation over the past 40 years, and, $100,000, maybe it's worth $250, maybe $300, right? But if they say, without dividends, right? But if they say, okay, now show me the S&P with dividends and capital appreciation, with the I and with the capital appreciation, well, it's probably worth $500,000, $600,000. That one little 1% to 3% dividend coming in, being reinvested, is where the growth actually happens, and is where compounding actually happens, because capital appreciation, there is no compounding with capital appreciation, because it goes from $10 share, 11, 12, 13. There's no compounding there. The compounding comes in when you have one stock, one share that now becomes two shares because you got a dividend where you can buy a second share. That's where the compounding comes in. And people don't get that. They think, oh, my share price went from $10 share to $15 share. I compounded my money. No, that's not compounding. So you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is the great confusion, right? Known growth versus unknown growth. And people are confused about those kinds of things. They know they want growth, but they don't know how to get it. They don't know that you can have a known growth versus an unknown growth. Well, we have something that we like to give you today. We have a book we like to give you today. It's going to help you understand how to get growth the old-fashioned way, through compounding, through dividends and interest reinvestment. Common Sense Income Strategies by a friend, Mike Eastham. Mike is a CPA and PFS, and he's done a masterful job of putting together this book in a way that simple fashion of reading, to be able to understand and be able to implement, maybe not implement yourself on a do-it-yourself basis, but be able to understand how that works. And we love to put this in your hand for free by calling us at 800-725-7616 for your free copy. Next 5 first-time callers, 800-725-7616. When I'm thinking about that, Daniel, I'm thinking about some of our newest clients, and they're just like they're financial people. So they, one guy in particular, he has not heard our podcast or our radio show, but he's a financial guy, and he's right on line with what I'm saying and with what we're doing. And it's great working with people like that. But, we have to educate a lot of people. And so that's why we like to give them a book like this, Common Sense Income Strategies, so that they can be educated, so that they can know and be stress-free in how their money's is growing, how their money is being used for them, for their purposes. If you want that book in our listening audience, 800-725-7616. Ask for the book. Call now.
AAA, when we're talking about those definitions, it's changed. The definitions have changed a lot because of the way market structure has changed, right? So reading through books, talking to people who used to do financial advising or investing, they talk about the value of known growth or dividends. They talk about the value of that compounding. People used to put a premium on that and they wanted to get dividends. And in this age of stock buybacks, or you could call it instant gratification, right? Things like that. People companies have put less focus on paying dividends, and people have been less interested in where their growth comes from, which is very important, especially as you move into retirement, knowing where your growth is coming from. Is it from that equation? Is that from the income you're getting paid, or is that coming from capital appreciation? Because one is known and the other is not known, right? And so because companies are focusing on these dividends less, financial advisors are focusing on this less, people are focusing on this less, and it's going to almost all capital appreciation as opposed to some blend like it has been in the past.
Right. And Daniel, this is something that was really, really popular, especially in the 1950s, the 1960s, and 1970s, when the stock market really wasn't having much capital appreciation to it. People were focusing on dividend-paying stocks, and it made sense to them. And so this is very old school. Like, I started this segment talking about the railroad companies. Why did that grandmother buy those railroad stocks way back when? Because of the dividends. She knew, it either had dividends or she knew they were going to pay dividends. And then she passed it on to multi-generations within her family, right? And this is something that people forgot about. In the 1980, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was at 700. And today it's what, 44,000 or somewhere in that vicinity, give or take, 1,000, right? So it's gone up multiple folds. So people have become enamored with the stock market over the past, 40, 45 years or so. And I understand that, but just because that's what it is, that's not what it's necessarily going to be. And what's old, tried and true, that's what we're talking about. Known growth is tried and true.
Yeah, exactly, AAA. Exactly. It's also what you need in order to support the lifestyle that you have in retirement. And what do I mean by that? Well, it makes it a lot easier to enjoy your vacation, even if you don't need the income. So we talk about income all the time, and this doesn't change anything about income. All we're doing is we're saying, some people say, I don't need that income. I don't want that income. Right? I don't want to collect extra capital or taxes. I don't need more money to support the lifestyle. I don't want to increase my lifestyle. I don't want to fly first class. I don't want to pay for my kids' my grandkids' college education, right? They don't care about income for all those things. I want growth. Well, here's a way to get certain growth is when you focus on that I, and instead of saying, I'm going to invest in growth and I'm going to go for, I hope I get 7 or 8% in growth, capital appreciation, and I'll get 1 or 2% in dividends, certain growth.
Right.
Add those together and I'm somewhere 9 or 10%. But only that 1 to 2% is the certain portion of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Flip it around. If you go for the I first, the certain growth first, and you get 6 or 7%, and you get 1 or 2% in the unknown growth or capital appreciation, now when you're on the cruise ship or you're sitting on the beach enjoying, time with your family, and markets are doing whatever they feel like doing that day, they're having a bipolar day, it doesn't affect you because you now know that you have this certain growth coming into the portfolio, growing organically.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't need that income to support the lifestyle you wanted, you're still growing the portfolio and getting growth even when, as you know, I like to say, the market gods aren't cooperating, right? The flows aren't cooperating. Whatever it is not cooperating with you that day.
Right. I can't imagine what it'd be like being on a cruise ship or something, hearing that the market dropped 20%, 30%, 40%, right? For most people, with how they have their money. And that's why people run out of money, is because they don't change from a capital appreciation mindset and investments to a income approach, a dividends and interest approach soon enough. So therefore they run out. By the time they realize they're running out of money, it's too late. If they change stuff at that point, it's too late. They're already on a crash course. They have stage 4 financial cancer that their chemotherapy, and it's terminal. Chemotherapy and surgery is not going to help, right? It's inoperable financial cancer. You listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Can I retire? When can I retire? How much do I need to retire on? A lot of questions that I'm always hearing from people. And I love to field questions from our radio show listeners. And so if you want to know if you can retire, when you can retire, how much you need to retire, any of those kinds of questions, call us, please. I'd love to have a retirement conversation, an RRR conversation with you. It starts Retirement Readiness Report conversation with you. It starts with that. And then from there, we have an analysis that we can put together for you that will help you be certain of that which is unknown, to help you to be able to get rid of your confusion regarding retirement. Yours for free. Call us at 800-725-7616. Ask for the RRR conversation. RRR conversation. Retirement Readiness Report conversation. 800-725-7616 for the next 5 first-time callers. 800-725-7616. Call them now.
Time for some tough questions for these financial advisors. What makes Retirement Income Source different from other financial?
Our extensive experience generating investment income quickly so you can have financial peace of mind, navigate your retirement smoothly, and have more time to spend with family and doing the things you love.
We gotta talk to these guys. We're done here.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
When can I retire? How much do I need to retire on? A lot of confusion when it comes to retirement. You know, another thing where there's a lot of confusion is, when should you start looking at seriously your portfolio for retirement, getting it ready for retirement? I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. And today we're talking about the great confusion. AAA, the great confusion. Where does my growth come from? And when we say growth, are we talking about the same thing?
Right. Right. And that's where the confusion is, because of the definitions that are used for growth. And what do you mean by growth? What's your definition of growth? That's why when people come in and we talk about, retirement readiness report or something like that, we find out what their definitions of retirement are. What do they need for retirement? To sit on the couch watching TV versus what they want in retirement to do all the different things. And I did one of those recently with somebody, Daniel, and their want was probably a couple $1,000s more than their need. And they said, but we don't may not need that right away. And I said, well, that's fine. But at least if you have it available, you can do it if you want. And if you don't, you can just reinvest and grow your money the old-fashioned way, right? They're your bottom line. So they like that idea. But, but still, growth, how does it happen? What's the definition? But it's confusing. It's very confusing to people. Like we started the show with talking about, the word done, and people use that all the time. But what do they mean by done? But, the other factor I see all the time, Daniel, is people say, well, I'm 60 years old, and when I'm 65, I'll come see you, Andrew. Or when I'm ready to retire, I'll come see you, Andrew. Right. And what I say is, Whoa, there's confusion with that, right? Because the more years we're given to be able to compound people's income, like we were looking at those reports today, the better and the more income they can have in retirement so that they can enjoy their retirement more. So the key, there's confusion as to when people should be getting involved and what type of growth people should be getting, right? And switching from when should they switch from capital appreciation growth to compounding growth?
Yeah, well, typically we see about 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Because there's some psychology stuff involved with that, with the 10 years, right? You want to start seeing how this switching from what you're used to of, I'm going to call it volatility, right? This roller coaster ride of ups and downs and what's called dollar cost averaging, buying shares, right? Because you're saving, to having a more stable portfolio that's paying you, right?
Right.
It can take a little bit. So about 10 years from that aspect. Another reason you want to typically start making the change is because it starts compounding, right? And what do we mean by compounding? Well, when you talk about known growth, it's amazing how it works. It's like a snowball rolling down the mountain, right? It's this little tiny snowball, and it starts at the top, and it starts rolling down and getting bigger and bigger. Because when you have known growth, that comes into the portfolio, and then you get more known growth on that, which gets bigger and bigger, right? So if you go from, let's just say $1 million portfolio, right, AAA?
Right.
And you're hoping that you're going to get that 8% capital appreciation, 9% capital appreciation. That's $80,000 or $90,000 a year, right?
Right.
Except that's not how it works. It's never that much a year. It's usually a lot more than that or a lot less than that. It's not. It's not usually what the average is, right?
Right. Right. That's why it's an average, right?
So if it goes down, then you have to make a lot to get back to where you were, because that's the mathematical numbers. If it goes down 50% to get back to even, right, AAA?
No way, Ray. Yeah.
You got to get 100%. If that $1 million went down to 500,000, you have to get $500,000 to get back to
100%.
even, and that's 100%.
Right. Just to break even.
So the numbers don't work for you when it's small numbers. That's a lot easier to handle. So if you got $100,000 and it goes to $50,000, yeah, that feels bad, but it's not the end of the world like it is if it's your $1 million, or the end of your retirement, I should say, right? Like it is with your retirement. So you can handle that a lot better. Whereas if you have $1 million and if you have 100,000 and you're getting, let's say, the certain percent of $7,000 a year, that doesn't get anybody that excited, $7,000 a year. But when you have $1 million, now you're talking $70,000, and that comes in good markets and bad markets. That's the known growth, right, AAA? So you see that it starts changing as people get closer to retirement. One is because of their portfolio, and two is the size of the portfolio, and two is because of the emotions and the psychology involved with preparing for retirement.
Exactly. And you didn't even mention risk. You didn't even mention that you're lowering your risk when you do that, right? Which is, a lot of people recognize that as they get older, as they get closer to retirement, they need to lower their risk. So how would you like to lower your risk and still get equity-like returns, right? That's what we're talking about. But most people don't know how to do that. And rightly so, because most financial professionals don't know how to do that like that, because they're all about capital appreciation, the Wall Street model, which is the more money that of yours that's in the market, means more money they're going to make, right? For as long as possible. So you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. And today we have a paper to go along with today's show that I think you're going to find interesting because, what we're talking about is dividends, interest, income generating investments, and compounding your money the old fashioned way, getting growth out of your money the old fashioned way through compounding dividends and interest and then reinvestments, developing more and more shares. Well, this paper that we have for you today is called Income Generating Investments 101. And we love to put this in your hand for free by calling us at 800-725-7616. Our goal is to eliminate confusion from you when it comes to investments, when it comes to retirement investing. Our goal is to help you to lower stress. Our goal is to help educate you to, again, eliminate confusion. 800-725-7616 for your free copy of the Income Generating Investments 101. Call now, 800-725-7616. Daniel, you listen to Financial Strategies because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is the great confusion and unknown versus known growth. Wow, Daniel, this has been an exciting show, I think. I hope that we're bringing stuff across, getting this information across to people in a way that they can receive because it's very important, very valuable to them, and will help them to be able to make smart decisions if they understand this stuff, right? Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. AAA, if we want to look at a quick analogy or a quick example for the G, the growth equals I, income plus capital appreciation, basically how your money's made up, right? So if we look at capital appreciation and we look at 3 income oriented vehicles, okay? And now you can still get growth from income oriented vehicles, but the income is the focus. So we look at that and we compare them to the S&P 500 just for ha-has.
Well, let me just say the S&P 500 is dividend stock, right? Dividend paying common stock, right? So it does have income, right?
It has the known growth component to it, and it has the unknown. The difference is the focus is on that capital appreciation, and the known growth is only about 1.5%.
Right. So we're going to show both examples, right? The one of that kind and the one of one that's a little bit more focused on known growth as opposed to unknown growth.
Right. So if we look at S&P for the last 10 years, right, it's about 216% growth or capital appreciation. Capital appreciation. Okay.
Well, that's pretty good. Over 200%. Great. Yeah.
Over 200%.
It's over 20% a year, years. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
10%. Yep. Okay. Now, we have one of the business development companies that we like a lot. They're involved with tech and things like that, but their focus is to pay dividends. So that's done 50% over that same 10 years.
Per year? No, over the whole time frame. So it's 5% a year capital appreciation.
The price return, capital appreciation. So capital appreciation, 52%. S&P, capital appreciation, about 215. Okay?
215. Wow. Big difference.
Now let's flip that over, AAA. And let's flip that over and let's look at what happens if we do the total return. We take the income and the capital appreciation on both of these. So now we look at the S&P and we add in that small dividend that we talked about, or the known growth. We add that in, and now we're at 270, about 270%. So it dramatically increased the return over the last 10 years.
In the S&P.
In the S&P.
Okay, so we went from 21% average to 27% average per year in the S&P, and that's just a 10-year period. But okay, gotcha. That's not bad. Pretty nice, yeah.
And we look at this Hercules Capital again. Remember, this is the BDC that's geared towards paying dividends or that known growth. And now if we look at total return over that same period of time,
Yeah.
It's 300 and about 40%.
Whoa. So
We
we
went from
5%.
50%, right?
Yeah.
50%.
Yeah.
But we talk in the compounding of those dividends and we get up to 340%.
So we went from a 5% average return to a 30% average return per year. And at what, is that the same risk as the S&P 500? You're a certified portfolio manager.
It's a lower beta. It is a lower beta to the S&P 500. And,
cool.
And so that beta would represent the volatility of the stock. So it's lower than the S&P, but I would say it would be similar to the S&P 500.
Okay. But wow, so there's other ways to invest besides S&P 500. There's other ways to invest.
There's two ways to get your growth. That's what we're talking about. There's focusing on capital appreciation. Now that's in the best 10 years, I think, probably in market history, at least for the S&P 500. It's got to be up there. I don't know that it's the absolute best, but it's got to be up there. So that's when things went absolutely wonderful, right?
Yeah.
But it's showing you, the whole point of the illustration is showing that there's two ways to get growth, AAA.
Yeah.
Two ways.
Right.
Appreciation, or you can go for that certainty or that certain growth of the dividends that you can spend or reinvest.
Right. The known growth versus the unknown growth. You can go up to you. Okay. Me, I like that which is known rather than which is unknown, right? I can plan on what is known. Good. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is the great confusion, known growth versus unknown growth. And today we have a paper, we have something we like to give you. It's called the Retirement Readiness Checklist. Are you really ready for retirement? Well, this checklist will help you prepare for retirement. We love to put this in your hands for free by calling us at 800-725-7616. Literally a checklist you can go down to help you prepare for retirement. 800-725-7616 for your free copy. Call now.
Do you have any questions for me about retirement income source?
I just want to make sure I can invest well enough to have enough income, enjoy my retirement.
We build a custom retirement plan based around your income and goals.
How do I know I can trust you?
Building trust does take time, but our investment advisory arm is comprised of fiduciaries, which means our obligation is to you. So you can enjoy your retirement with a little more income stability.
I'm in.
That's 2 out of 3.
You're locked on to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
And welcome back to Financial Strategies Radio with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's show is the great confusion. And one of those things that happen, I hear so many times, we've been talking about the confusion of growing your money, that there's two different ways of growing your money, known way of growing your money and uncertain way of growing your money. And I can't tell you how many times that people will say, how come I've never heard this before? I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. And today we're talking about known versus unknown, or we're talking about a new equation to illustrate two ways of achieving growth in an investment portfolio. Right, AAA?
Right. That's correct. You got it, man. That's right. And it's on one side, it's very basic. But on the other side, it's not, because people are not told. People are not educated in this. And that's why we're dedicated to educating people to make smart decisions.
Exactly, AAA. And people will say, I've never heard of that, or why hasn't somebody told me that before? Why hasn't my advisor told me about that? Right? Because most people want a little bit of certainty, or they want to have an idea of what they're gonna get in return for their valuable capital. So why is it that people don't talk about the two different ways? We hear about capital appreciation or watching your portfolio go up, But why aren't more people talking about this other way to get growth, AAA?
Well, I mean, I don't have time to go into the long version. So the short version would basically be this, right? I mean, if you think about it, if you look at the financial magazines or newspapers, who sponsors them? Where do they get their money from? Subscriptions or from advertisers? Advertisers. Who are the advertisers? Wall Street firms. How do Wall Street firms make money? They make money by having as much of your money as they can in the market for as long as possible, because they make money if the market goes up, down, or sideways. But you only make it if it goes up. So, there's this club, we're going to call it, of people, and it melds over into the educational realm from that standpoint, so that you've got a lot of people, a lot of talking heads telling you got to invest in the market. And then you got 401k plans that they only let you invest in the market because they're built for young people who have 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, of savings. So they have time is on their side. And so, there are a lot of companies that are lobbying. And so what happens is that most professional financial people are geared to and have been educated in one way, shape, or another by Wall Street. I know, because I was educated by that same group until 2000, when the market started dropping and my clients started losing money. And I was like, wait a minute, nobody ever told me about this. So I started doing my own research, my own study to find out that there's a different way of doing things. And I dedicated myself at that point to educating people so that they could understand whether or not they want to do it. That's up to them. Fine. But, when people don't know what they don't know, I want to help them to know it. The egregious thing is when people don't know what they don't know and they don't want to know.
Yeah. I agree with you, AAA. It's an easy way to do it. The skills have been lost to try to pick the types of investments that can do well and generate income or generate that known growth. And there's a lack of education. There's really a lack of education for retirees in that, and for financial professionals in that, to learn how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, today we've been talking about the great confusion, and it doesn't just hit in regard to growing money, but it hits in other aspects of retirement, like we said, as far as when should you start thinking about retirement? Mm-hmm. And we've identified that there's this 10-year window when everything starts to change. Right. Daniel, you're still a young man. I'm on the other side of, I'm obviously a couple of decades older, being your father and all, but, I've gone, I have been where you are, but you are not where I am. Someday you will be. And that's where I'm trying to lend, we get to retire vicariously through our clients every day, which is great because we can pass this on to our radio show listeners. Right. And that's one thing we found, is that this 10-year time frame before retirement, everything changes, and we need to you need to start doing things. Just like in a physical body, things change when you hit 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old. They're not the same as when you were 20 or 30. So that's, I want to spend the last piece of our show here going through that, because, that's significant, but we don't need to be wrapping up. But before we do that, I want to let everybody know that you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. And today's topic is the great confusion: known return, known growth versus unknown growth. And we have a book that we love to give you to the next 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616 called Common Sense Income Strategies. This is a way of growing your money, having known growth for your money. We love to put this in your hand. It's a skillfully written book where you can understand it and be able to have it applied to your portfolio in a way where you can be certain about your future rather than uncertain. We love to put in your hand Common Sense Income Strategies. Ask for the book, 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616 for your free copy. Call now. So Daniel, as people, head toward 10 years around retirement, They've been accumulating money and they need to start transitioning around the 10-year point, right?
Yeah, AAA. That's exactly right. Transitioning around that 10-year point. And, there's, do you want to go through a timeline on that 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, real quick, right? So years 9, 10, 9, somewhere in there, right? People need to get on this, right? When do they want to retire? What actual date? What are they going to need or want for income? How are they going to bridge the gap?
Yeah.
And, we have that retirement readiness report that helps them understand how to bridge the gap. But that's the time they need to start looking at that, right?
Yeah. How much do you need, right? How much do you need? Look at, if you don't know, look at your paycheck, see how much you have left over in the bank, subtract the FICA taxes, and there's your number.
Well, yeah, but that's just what you need to sit on the couch watching TV or watching the news, whatever, right? But what they want, they're going to probably need more money to do the things they want to do, which is fine for most people if they know how to grow their money with certainty, grow their money, have the known growth as opposed to unknown growth. And that's where building an income foundation is important. And that's where you're getting to maybe in year 8 or 7, 6, right? Where you're gradually shifting into more dividend reinvestment portfolio rather than a capital appreciation portfolio. You're moving out of Tesla stock more into maybe some of those, business development corporations like you were talking about earlier.
Right. Maybe some bonds,
or
preferreds, REITs, things like that. Stuff that you know is going to pay you. And that's what we're talking about, known growth. This is things like dividends and interest, things that pay you that you can count on. That's why we're saying that it's known, is because it's coming into your account regardless of market volatility. And that's why we keep calling that known, is because you can look and you can see what these companies are going to be paying you. Right.
Exactly. Very important. And then, you're talking about maybe years 5, 4, 3, when you're testing it. You remember that one client we had, Daniel, that he was still working and he said, I don't understand how this works. Can I start getting some of this money into my bank account every month? And we said, yeah, sure. And that made him feel so much more comfortable. Remember that?
Yeah. Lots of clients, they love that because we see it happening. We're closely watching their portfolios and we see all the money coming in, and we can generate all the reports they want to see that money coming in the accounts. But it's totally different when those dividends are coming out of your account, coming into your bank account, or when they're reinvesting and you're watching the portfolio grow organically. But that's what you're talking about. You're talking about that you're talking about that testing it, making sure you're comfortable on it, because a big part of retirement is confidence, right? And that's where we throw away the Wall Street model of you can draw 3 to 4% of your portfolio, and Monte Carlo simulation says that you should be able to retire and stay retired. We throw that out when you go to the known, because now it's not a hope or a guess or a Monte Carlo simulation. Now it's maybe if you could do 6% of known, that means you could draw 6%, and it's not a hope anymore.
It's a beautiful thing. Everything changes when you start, the closer you get to retirement. It's kind of like you're going up a hill your whole life, the retirement mountain, and you get to the top, a snow-cap covered mountain. You got to switch vehicles. You can't go in a 2-seater sports car anymore. You got to need an all-wheel drive SUV, maybe with a professional driver that's been there before, right? But the key for our listening audience folks, is that, there's 2 paths, the known growth versus unknown growth. 2 outcomes. Now, think of it in this way, that, you go for unknown growth, the way that you have always done for the past 20, 30, 40 years. And you're in year 8, 2 years before you're ready to retire, the market crashes. So guess what? You're delaying retirement. You're cutting your spending. A lot of things change. You're stressed out.
Or
if you go
retire.
the other... Right. The other way is known growth, and everything crashes in year 8. Hey, the income keeps coming in. It's kind of like chickens laying eggs, right? You still have the chickens, so they're still laying the eggs, and you can eat the eggs, right? You retire on schedule, you have peace, not stress. That's why we say we want to educate retirees. Educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. They're at peace, and that's what this show is all about. Any last comments, Daniel? I see we're out of time.
AAA, we get a lot of people that come in that have this confusion because they say things like, well, if everything goes right, or we hope that markets keep doing what they're doing and we can retire, right? We have people that come in and say these kinds of things to us.
Right.
And we have other people that come in and they say, I didn't know about that. And that's the confusion. That's why the show is called The Great Confusion, is because people are so confused about that. And if you are confused about that, or you are interested in knowing about the second way, the way that's not talked about on the big financial media shows, right? If you are interested in that second way, the known growth way of growing your portfolio, we've got resources for you, right, AAA?
That's right. And AI is not one of those resources. AI is not going to be able to tell you. Okay, I tell you right now, folks, because we've gone on AI and we've tested it, and AI is stupid when it comes to this stuff. Okay, so anyway, you've been listening to Financial Strategies with Daniel Agemy. Listen, another great unknown is that can I retire? When can I retire? We'd love to be able to help take the stress out of your life and help you get on a path during that 10-year time frame of being able to get a trajectory, a strategy that's going to get you retired when you want to retire. Call us 800-725-7616. Ask for the RRR conversation, the Retirement Readiness Report conversation. 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616. Listen, we have a lot to be grateful for. Daniel, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful that you're part of this firm. You know, you being part of this firm has built and has helped us to be able to help and educate thousands of people every year. Thank you for your help with that. I'm very grateful to God, for my family, for you and our listening audience, that you're listening to the show, to this radio station, and to being able to see things from a different perspective. And until next week, we hope you have a great, blessed Thanksgiving. Give gratefulness and Thanksgiving to where it's due. And with that, we want you to be stress-free. Invest for the I more than the G, to get the G, right?